move into our agenda. We would entertain any public comment. Is the microphone not working? How about now? Yeah. We have a new microphone system tonight, so we could have some issues with it. Before we move into the regular part of the agenda, we'll now have public comment on any items that are not on the agenda for this evening. Does any member of the public wish to comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will go to board comments. Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Hit the green button. Did it light up?
Now it did.
There we go.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to thank, I forgot to do it last week, I wanted to thank the Public Works Department for the great job that they've been doing through our past 2 snowstorms. So thank you to Jeff Klein and the employees of the Public Works. Also, today is National Law Enforcement Day, and I would like to thank the Lower Paxton Police Department for all that they do for the residents of this township. So if you see them out, please go up to them and tell them thank you for the great job that they are doing, because we really appreciate them. And our police academy this year, our Citizens Police Academy, is being held February the 26th to May the 14th. It's 11 weeks. I took the academy 2 years ago, and it's open to our residents. And if we have any vacancies after that, then people from the other townships are allowed to sign up for it. It's an 11-week course. You do field trips. It's every Monday night from 6 to 9. And you might think 3 hours, but I'm going to tell you, you start at 6 o'clock, and you can't believe, Mr. Sproul sitting out here, he took it also, you can't believe at 9 o'clock that it's over with. It is well worth it. If you want to know what happens, you know, in police every day, you go to the coroner's office, you go to 911, you also go over to the prison. So those are field trips that you do take. So that is February the 26th through May the 14th. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Hawk?
Why, just as an update,
Turn your mic,
Hit the green button.
hit the green button.
There it is now.
there we go.
Not the button.
Loman and I attended an award ceremony at lunchtime, and it was attended by Loman and myself, Terry Bachnight from the Friendship Community Center, Mary Ellen Rudder, which many of you know, Norm Azumas, who local well-known gentleman who used to work with Lou Barletta, Christine Hunter from representing Heroes Grove, and Ed Black from Ed Black and Associates. And various awards were given out, and Derry Township had 2. Lower Paxton with Heroes Grove received 1, and Tim Reardon, and I forget, Loman, the other one. There were 5.
Yeah, there was a project in Allison Hill.
Okay, yes, Allison Hill. Very well done. 50, 60 people, and a lot of outstanding work being done in the area. And it was a way of recognizing the people that are very, very actively and involved in those projects. And Christine, who was there on behalf of Heroes Grove, which we're all familiar with, did a very, very outstanding job in bringing everybody up to date on what's happening and how things went. But delightful, and had an opportunity to sort of rub elbows with a lot of different people that are very actively engaged in the community. So was held up at the Dixon Center, and soup and sandwiches, good conversation, and it was glad to be a part of it, yeah.
I think that we should note that although Heroes Grove is here in Lower Paxton
Right.
Township in Brightville Park, it is in fact Dauphin County Heroes Grove, and it is a facility that honors everyone from military to first responders, police officers, teachers, ordinary citizens who perform heroic acts. The first phase has been completed now for, what, about 2 years, Robin?
Yeah.
The amphitheater is there. It is available for use for various events and can be reserved through our Parks and Recreation Department. And phase 2 is hopefully going to go into design this year and construction next year. So the project continues apace.
Yeah, and you can mark your calendars for the first Saturday in May. R.J. Harris, the past 2 years, this will be the third year, has had Support the Troops there. So it's a great event to attend. It usually starts around noontime, so that'll be the first Saturday in May.
And I believe the Colonial Park Rotary Club this year is going to start a Memorial Day
Day,
program
yeah.
there as well. So it's getting a lot of very good use.
And thank you to Loman and Mr. Hawk for attending today and representing the board.
Do any other board members have any comments they would like to make?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, if not, we'll move our workshop on to item number 4 on your agenda. We have a presentation of a proposal from Polaris Advisors. They are interested in providing financial services to the township's employee fund, the 457 Deferred Compensation Plan. Mr. Dunwoody.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and board members, Justin Dunwoody and Corey Bayshore are here. I'd just like to provide a brief introduction. Lower Paxton Township has maintained what is referred to as a 457 deferred compensation plan for its employees. This is a totally employee-funded retirement plan based upon pre-tax contributions by employees to an account that they manage, but Lower Paxton Township maintains a fiduciary responsibility for. I've received a proposal from Polaris Advisors. After receiving that proposal, I reviewed it with the finance department, the finance director, finance manager, had significant discussions, and then we, feeling that the proposal was a proposal that had merit and one that should have further consideration. We asked that Polaris Advisors make a presentation to the township's joint employee pension committees, which they did. The joint employee pension committees then recommended that this proposal be presented to the Board of Supervisors and potentially move forward. So with that brief introduction, Justin and Corey, the floor is yours. They do have a video, too, that... The microphone is the green light on.
There, green light. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be with you this evening. I'm Corey Bayshore, managing partner at Polaris Advisors. This is Justin Dunwoody, one of the partners at Polaris as well. We're excited to be here with you this evening. Thanks for that introduction, George. We were thinking about, kind of what would the taxpayers' questions maybe be, with regards to this plan. I think, George, answered that. One thing that I would add, and I'm going to go through, and we'll share a little video before we get into, what services we would be offering. But locally, we do work with, a number of other townships, counties, school districts. I mean, Central Dauphin happens to be one that we've worked with since 1996. And the services that we provide, and we'll share a video to kind of describe that a little bit, is helping people to plan, for their retirement, and understanding, kind of what services are currently being provided, to employees, from the township. There's probably a tremendous opportunity, for not only participants, employees, of the township, but also participants in the 457 plan, to help them and get them on a path, towards retirement. So realizing, again, the monies that they choose, those employees choose to put into the plan, that's out of their own paycheck, so it's not necessarily anything that's causing additional taxpayer dollars or saving taxpayer dollars, but we do feel, and we've seen that with a lot of the plans that we worked with over the years, that if we can help people to get on a path, that they'll be able to retire potentially maybe a year or two, or hopefully even for some people, just be able to retire and when they want to. So instead of staying maybe years beyond the years that they would have desired as far as retirement is concerned. So we'll share a little video. I mean, this is part of the services that we provide. Realizing we are in the digital age. So a lot of the tools that we provide for people that prefer, those types of tools and services, this just gives you a little glimpse as to how, from a planning standpoint, we can engage and stay engaged with folks. And as I would describe, what we're going to share with you is in today's day and age, everybody has GPS. I remember when GPS, it was like this huge add-on, to get it on your car. And I know my car has a navigation system, but I barely ever use it anymore because it's, some of the apps and things that you can have on your phone, are even better, than the GPS in your car. But this, as I would kind of describe it in simplest terms, is, try to provide people better orientation with where they are today, and based upon everything they're doing. So you have pension from the township, you have this 457 plan, if they have a spouse, and they have maybe a 401k plan. So how do all those things come together and give them better orientation as to where they are today and what's the path that they're on? And it might not be the path that they desire to be on. So they might need to make a legal U-turn or something, and that's really kind of what this tool, kind of helps, provide that orientation. So I don't know from a sound standpoint, if you need to bend the mic down, George, to your computer.
Well, let's see if we can.
Because without sound, this is...
Remember, you were a kid. Things were simple. Life was good. Everything you owned could fit into a box. All your worldly possessions in one safe place. It made you feel secure. Time passed. You collected more things. And more boxes. Life became less simple. Here's a question. Do you know where everything is and what everything is worth? If you don't, you should. Want to know.
Gentlemen,
Turn volume
Now,
on.
well, you see, unfortunately, this is, the system that we're using right now was installed 20 minutes ago. Literally the last 2 days. So our working knowledge of what we're doing with the sound system is very limited. I do apologize, but
That's all right. We can go...
to help you stay on track,
You're going to be able to
create
see
a monthly budget,
some of the abilities
understand your
that
spending
the tool has
habits,
as far as
and monitor
aggregation
your
of
progress.
accounts and kind of
See your bottom line
plugging
at
all
any
that
time.
aggregation
Automatic
into
alerts,
one
track
homepage,
changes.
one web page that
There's
each
a problem,
participant would have the ability to utilize.
We'll know.
Where they might not just see their 457, but they may see an IRA or a brokerage account or something else that has nothing to do with the township that is coming into their homepage and then basically populating a retirement plan for them, so they can see real time, changes in the market and how that affects what they have and how that affects their retirement income. There's also, it's going through, it shows you there's an encrypted vault where they can store, documents, wills, deeds, all kinds of important documents they need to store. You can go through and have a pretty robust budget for somebody that maybe is getting started and they want to put a budget together and kind of work towards their savings goals. Well, it looks like our video is about done on that, but that's the tool that we provide to them is this encrypted website that they have the ability to aggregate everything into one spot and see their whole financial picture in one spot, and it updates daily. So they're able to see, I'm 38% to my retirement goal today. 2 years down the row, I'm 44%, so I'm actually making headway on this goal. And then on top of that, there is an output that we put together for each participant that wants us to. So they have this tool, but then we also have basically a plan that's provided to each of them, which is a hard copy of all these, if that sample
That's what
plan
you want?
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sample line would be good.
So this is actually a hard copy of that that everybody does receive. So you'll be able to see, I don't know, George, if you want to scroll down to...
Balance sheet would be good.
Yeah, something like this. So this first section is basically putting together a balance sheet, so it's getting a good idea of where exactly they are at this particular moment, and we're basically showing them everything they have, and then on top of that, yep, here it is. So we're kind of putting this together. This is just a sample, so we're putting this together and showing everything that they have and where it's at, and then that does funnel back to the back part of the plan, which is then a retirement section to show them how do all these things you have and all these income sources and all these accounts and investment accounts and retirement accounts, how does this actually correlate to your retirement and you being able to replace income potentially, because that's really what everybody's looking to do in retirement is in some way replace their income during their working years. So this is, I think maybe, do you think like the retirement section maybe is a good section to show on that? That's, I would say, maybe, do you have page numbers on there? Or? Yeah. It'd be probably, I would say, like 40-ish around there. Well, that's actually a good part too, that education part. So it actually goes to put together for parents. It'll show them, how much do you potentially need to be able to pay for college, and it actually shows them how much they're on pace to save and how much they should start putting away if their goal is to be able to pay for education for their children. And then the part that
If you go back up just a little bit, George,
yeah,
this
right
is the retirement section. Yeah.
So this section, you can only see kind of half of it on here, but it's basically putting together all the retirement income sources, and then showing that on a graph for them. And this is that graph that's going to be in their encrypted website too. So they're going to have access to these reports that are updated by what's happening in their accounts based on market performance. So you're going to see on this, you'll have certain income sources, whether it be Social Security or pensions or anything like that. We're going to be plugging into this calculation for them. We have basically then them taking withdrawals from their investment accounts to support their income needs. And we can show somebody if they're on pace to be able to replace their income or not. And if not, we can basically tell them, especially with we're talking about here, this 457 plan, you're putting away $100 a pay or $250 a pay in your 457. That needs to be X. It needs to be 400. It needs to be 500 if you want to be able to actually retire and replace your income at age 60 or 65 or whatever age that is, which we think is a really big potential benefit to townships that we work with, the municipalities and counties. One of the biggest things that drives overall cost, as you know, health insurance, one of the very large costs, and just wages. Or employees that are 65 plus drive those costs dramatically. If there's a way we can get people on a pace to be able to retire at 60 or 62 or ideally before 65, that really helps costs on a lot of those items that drive up the overall expenses of the township. There's also sections on survivor need, estate planning, college planning, investment planning that's included this in as well for each individual that would like us to do that. We don't charge an additional fee for participants to do this, which we normally would. You walk in our office and want this done, we're going to charge you for it. Participants in these plans, we do not. So,
The only thing, I just add a
Yeah,
couple
to add
things.
to that,
Yeah, so, this is of course customized, for any of the participants. So everybody, Justin just, happened to pull out, a fairly well-to-do sample there. But it's custom for every participant. So based upon, what their needs, their lifestyle, their means, are. So, but, the general guidelines that we typically use is, an individual, and this is Department of Labor standards, like the Department of Labor or not, but, 70-80% income replacement of pre-retirement income, at your desired age. So, that's what we would be using, for some of those solves. And like Justin mentioned, there's other things that could potentially happen along the way prior to retirement. And there is a section in there on survivor needs, disability, other things, education, any other accumulation goals. So it's completely customized, for each individual. But again, like I said, it's given, better, hopefully, orientation as to, where all the participants are. And then the two questions that we get most common are, am I saving enough? And when can I retire? That's probably the third question. And are my investments, is my allocation, how's my allocation look? Is it appropriate? And so those are really, what we seek to kind of help and assist with. We use another, tool, more on the asset allocation side of things as far as stocks, bonds, cash and such. But this is more for, answer those questions. Are they saving enough? And when are they going to be able to retire? So.
I think
Any questions on this piece at all? From services, standpoint, planning side? Okay, so we can switch gears and we'll go through. So one of the things that the township tasked us to do is to put together an RFP of providers and looking at the landscape of providers in the 457 space, which is actually expanding. We just got a message today that another well-known name company is now stepping into that arena. So, but we'll share it with you. I'll let Justin go through this section. We put together a formal RFP. We'll kind of share kind of that what that looks like, and then we'll kind of go through some of the methodology behind it.
Okay, so this is just a summary of the formal RFP that we actually did back in October, I believe, was the official time frame for this. This summary is just meant to give you a pretty good grasp of expenses of the plan, which is only obviously one issue that we worry about, but it is an issue that's come to the forefront of everybody's, of most all investors' minds in the last few years. So that's really what this is about, is what are participants paying for their investments and their plan and their record keeping and the education, all those things now, and what could they be paying for different providers that also provide record keeping services for 457 plans. You'll actually see on the top, you're going to see the current, you'll see Empower, One America, Brinker Capital, and Mass Mutual. This is just simply 4 that the list got narrowed down to. There was 8 to 10 others that were also asked to provide proposals that either did not provide them or priced themselves so far out they were didn't really make a lot of sense to put them on this finalist page. So basically what you're going to see is how the fees are structured across the top. You're going to see a record-keeping fee. That's basically the cost that provider is charging to basically, as the name says, record keep the plan. They're sending statements out. They're consolidating participant accounts. They're the ones that are kind of holding all the assets. They're giving participants access to all the funds that they have to invest in. Currently, the system, and we'll get into a little bit of the methodology on the next slide, but the system is one that all the expenses are inside of a fund fee. So when you won't actually see fees broken out, you're going to see NA, 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 and you'll just see an investment expense. They basically have all their fees inside of a fund expense that they can manipulate, which is, in our opinion, maybe not the most transparent way of showing fees. We'd rather be able to see exactly what you're paying. But so when you come down, you're going to see an investment expense of 1.33. That's your average participant is paying 1.33% on their funds inside their 457 plan. They don't know where that's going or who's getting paid what from that, but they just see this investment expense from the fund of 1.33. We then broke that down by the other providers. So you'll see Empower charges a 0.15% record-keeping fee. The investment expense is 0.22, and they pay an advisor to do education because they don't do that component, 0.28. 0.28, and the investment expense is 0.32. So you get a total cost to the participant of 0.75. So there's significant savings. I know when you're talking about basis points and quarters of percents, it doesn't feel like a lot when you're talking about somebody going from 1 to 0.75. When you take that over 35 years of a career, that turns into huge dollars. And this, also keep in mind, for those of you that have some maybe background in this, this is we try to make as true of an apples-to-apples comparison as possible, meaning we're not trying to take an actively traded fund and compare that to a passive fund because they don't typically have the same expenses. So where they have active, we're using active. Where they have passive, we're using passive. So that gives you an idea of the potential savings from a few of these providers. Now, the reason why some of these providers are on here is they all have unique abilities. Empower is they're enormous. They're one of the largest record keepers in the world, so they have an incredible amount of scale. And because of that, you tend to find that your expenses are as low as you're going to find in an arrangement like this. One America specializes very heavily in government plans, 403Bs, 457s, things like that. Brinker Capital is a unique solution, and I don't think we're going to get into too much of the detail here about why they're unique, but they actually act as a fiduciary and manage participant accounts for them, kind of taking the participant investment direction off of them, which is somewhat unique. A lot of plans don't do that. But it does have a little bit of an additional cost for that. You'll see an investment manager cost of 0.20. And then Mass Mutual, we wanted to put that in because it's actually pretty similar to the arrangement that you have now with ICMA, where it's more of a cost inside of a fund fee. But just to show you, even if you're kind of using a more, an older, less transparent, just fund fee arrangement, where people get paid out of the cost of the funds, what you could potentially pay is still actually a savings from where you're at now in a similar arrangement. We wouldn't necessarily recommend that arrangement. We would prefer a more transparent arrangement like the Empower One America type of arrangement. So that is just basically an overview of the findings. The other document we have is a pretty detailed document. We're probably just going to hit a few parts of it. That's meant to give you really the background, and you're looking at almost 0.5% savings on average for those participants. Again, talking about a 30-year career, that turns into a lot of money. Plus the access to advice, which we think is one of the most important things. So the methodology, this actually just goes into a little bit of the detail of this whole report, and I don't know if you saw when that first got brought up, but there is like 60 pages on this report, and we're certainly not going to go through every single page in detail, but we wanted to give you an idea of all the areas that we're actually looking at. Expenses and fees is just one area. We want to know a lot more about that provider, their financial strength. Have they had any lawsuits? Have they won any awards about their website? How's the user interface? How's the user experience? So if the user logs into the participant website, how many clicks do they have to get to change their deferral percentage? I mean, all that goes into the narrowing down of these providers to a list of about 8 is what we narrowed it down to, that had systems and capabilities that we thought would fit this township. And then from there, then getting into the fee end of things to make sure that they're delivering the top level service for the most reasonable fee possible. But I think that actually does a pretty good job of the whole timeline that we've actually gone through to show how much background really the township now has gone through, and this presentation and this process for quite some time now, to really narrow that down. I'm trying to think if there's a page that we could jump to that would.
Well, there's, George, if you go back, I think a page or two, kind of the explanation, kind of differentiating the different.
The performance page too.
Yeah, especially on the investment slide. But George, if you go back, keep going. Yeah, kids page 2. This here. Oh, that's the one I was looking for. Sorry, we're used to having the controls. Can you tell? Go back up a little bit. Yeah, up a little. These are just blurbs in there from each of. We've mapped past it.
I got it. There we go.
No, back. Sorry, back. Right there. Perfect. So this is actually a really good, kind of fundamental page. Especially stewards and fiduciaries, for retirement plans to basically understand. There are essentially 3 different types of plans that record keepers typically offer. You have, the asset manager. These are typically plans that mainly offer, proprietary, type of investment offerings. The costs are typically, for record keeping and all the things that we just broke out, kind of a la carte on most of the different providers that we included in the benchmarking. The costs are all typically embedded in just the investment expenses. So there's really not true, kind of disclosure as far as who's taking what, for what services they're providing.
Think of like a sole mutual fund family. A lot of times you'll see plans where it's just one mutual fund, like American Funds runs a platform, but you only have access to that fund family and nothing else.
And that space is actually where, if you look at where most of the ERISA suits have come about, most of the plans kind of fall in that area. And then you have the asset gatherer, and this would be, what we provided, Mass Mutual. It's similar to kind of what you have now, where you have these sub-advised plans. Where the record keeper is actually going out, they're labeling the fund. It might be a growth fund, and they're going out and finding a growth money manager. And then pretty much where the industry is heading is more in this open architecture, type of arrangement, where no matter, what fund is selected in the lineup, the costs are there's a cost associated for record keeping. Depending on the fund, that's a participant, selects, there's going to be a different cost associated with the investment side of things, and then you have a, fixed cost typically on the advisor end. But that's really, when you look at the Empower, and the One America, those, and even to some degree the Brinker that we included in it, those fall in that open architecture. Because honestly, the reason why the industry is heading in that direction is there's less dollars trading hands behind scenes, and it's complete disclosure as far as who's getting what for record keeping, investment management, and advice. So you can go to the next this one. Not to get too heavily bogged down on the fee side of things, but when you look at an investment. And you look at the overall, fees that, a fund might charge. Of course, most people think that that's just for the investment management side of things. You can see by, kind of our graph here, that, pie chart is, that's usually a little bit more than 50%. You have these 12B1 fees, which come under a little bit of scrutiny in the last couple of years. These are distribution, fees. Typically go to, like a broker dealer or something of that nature. You have shareholder services fees, and then you have, sub TPA fees. So, underneath, kind of that, the sheet, when you pull it back and you're kind of looking at the fee side of things, again, what we're trying to do in this analysis, that we did, we try to break all those fees out. So it's, completely, full disclosure on the fee side. You want to go through the
Yeah, I was going to say,
three?
so we did talk about fees quite a bit. Another really important part to this, which might be just as important, is the actual funds that are offered, and are those funds managed well, and do participants have access to good funds? So we actually did provide in here. So this is actually the fee summary we did before. It's just in this program, just a little different format. I tried to make it easy and break it out. But below, so actually this will be good. So right here, this is a current breakdown of all the funds available inside the ICMA, which is the current 457 platform. So you'll see on here like a Vantage Point Growth and Income Investor. That is an ICMA-owned fund, so they prefer people to invest in that because there's more revenue driven from that fund since they own it. And you'll see the investment expenses at 1.38. And you'll see how much that correlates to in dollars based on how many people are investing in that fund. But then on the left, you're going to see a score. Some of them are not actually scored on here because they don't actually report to places like Morningstar and things like that if they're proprietarily owned. But the scoring on this is actually an independent third party called Retirement Plan Advisory Group, and they have a scoring methodology that you can get from 0 to 10 based on how's your performance been against your peers, what are the expenses of the fund, has the fund management changed. There's actually 10 different points that go into that, so not just performance. When you think of like a Morningstar rating, they're kind of looking at historical performance and just giving you like a 3-star or 5-star, when there's not really a lot of the kind of touchy-feely stuff that goes into it. If a manager changes, there could still be a 5-star fund where that's going to actually dock them points on here. So that's where another big part of this comes in is there's actually, if anything gets below like a 7, typically in our platforms when we're helping people, our clients and our plan sponsors manage them, we're quarterly looking at this grouping of funds that's available. We're doing due diligence on those funds, and we're making suggestions to say, this fund's been scoring as a 5. It's kind of middle of the road, mediocre fund for 3 years now. We got to get rid of that thing. We got to get a new fund to come in. You can't do that necessarily in a platform like this because it changes the fee structure if we move a fund out. And that's why you really need to get to that open architecture fee structure where you can move funds in and out without changing the fee structure of the plan. But you'll see there's 5s on here, there's 4, there's 7, there's 6s. These are funds that would fail our due diligence, that we would not want in a plan for our participants to utilize. And that's an issue we find in this more like asset gatherer, proprietary fund world. That would not happen in an open architect world because you have access to every fund and all the top funds in each asset class and top money managers. That kind of
That's good.
cover that part. Is any other part on that you think would be beneficial to?
No, I think if you go back a little bit more, George, I mean, and then kind of we'll wrap up this segment. But if you keep going back, there's a it'll show like, you know, large cap, value, blend, growth, and kind of where all of the different portfolios kind of score in. Yes, right here. This is perfect. So this is just a real good, you know, side-by-side, you know, comparison. And again, as Justin mentioned, I mean, we kind of had the benefit of having the answers to the question with, having the funds on the ICMA. But what we tried to do as best we could is to do an apples, to apples, comparison. We could have easily cherry-picked, with Empower or One America and just picked all, nines and tens. But I mean, just as a comparison, I mean, one thing, that does stand out is that the plan does offer 29 different investment options. So I don't know how many, newly eligible employees would look at a menu of 29 funds, I mean, and be able to, decide, which one to maybe put their money into. That's a little, a little bit much. A lot of studies have suggested, kind of going away from, the 29, or even we've seen some lineups that are larger, and going back down to, making sure you've covered the key categories, which is pretty much, what we were showing with Empower, where we have, 14 funds in the lineup. The interesting point is on the average score. So again, this is completely, third party, impartial. It's not us, scoring, the funds, third party, service, providing that, compared where ICMA is at 7.2. And then where Empower and all the others, and of course Mass Mutual, they're just perfect. Their score is a 10. Unfortunately with some of these tools, they clearly cherry picked their lineup in there. But I just wanted to share this because really when it boils down to, and I always like to share with whether it's stewards or fiduciaries for retirement plans, you have 4 responsibilities for the retirement plan. The investment is certainly, the investments and the investment offerings is certainly one of those pillars. We help with that. We have a crafted investment policy statement that uses, the criteria, this independent criteria for scoring to help manage that lineup. So you don't end up with funds that are scoring, you got a couple on there that are scoring 5s and even some 6s. At the same time, you don't have, proprietary funds in the lineup either. The second is what we covered on the fee side of things. You don't have to, you're not required, as a fiduciary steward to have the lowest fees, but that that the fees that you're paying are reasonable for the services that you're receiving. The third, which we touched on in the beginning, is on the education side of things, making sure that the participants are educated and informed and can make decisions with regards to the plan. And then the last one is really on the administrative side of things, and that's kind of more internally, making sure when people either increase, decrease, or if somebody is newly eligible for the plan, they're being made offered to participate in that plan. So we really try to help with all 4 of those pillars, and a lot of it we do on an ongoing, regular basis. As Justin said, on the investment side of things, we provide quarterly updates to all plan sponsors. Anything else you want to?
Anything else you can think of that you want us to hit?
Board members, any questions for clarification or comments? And again, what is being proposed based upon what we currently have is a program or an offering for employees that will provide far greater employee retirement advice, coupled with an investment lineup that is of better quality and a lower cost.
Yeah.
And access to professional advice on.
Do we have,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your comment. You weren't in a
Access
mic.
to professional advice. So right now, there's just access to a service representative from ICMA, but they're not a certified financial planner. They can't help you with anything outside of your 457, so they can't really get a full, complete picture of the participant's world.
Do we have a large number, George, that are participating now?
Yes, we do. This is available to all full-time employees. I'm going to say that we have at least 50% of our employees participating. And the plan itself has probably been in place about 20 years.
But it's purely a volunteer program.
Correct.
For employees, because employees could choose their own financial planner if they so
Totally
desire.
voluntary.
Right. This is simply one that we're providing opportunity if they so desire.
Since we didn't share enough facts, we were just at sorry, that was intended to be a bad joke. We were just at a township that we started working with a few years ago, and they were about at 52%, as Justin's saying, and now they're at 94% participation. So again, this is not costing the township dollars, it's not costing the taxpayer dollars. You know, that's on, the own employees' accord to make those decisions whether they want to put money into the plan. I will add, Empower is actually, as Justin mentioned, they're like the 900-pound gorilla. They actually are the record keeper for the state of Pennsylvania's 457 plan. Not that would be maybe the reason why you would make any decision to pick Empower, but I just mentioned that as part of the reason why, they're from a record-keeping standpoint, they're very, very inexpensive and efficient, so.
They also run Apple's plan. So in order to get Apple's plan, Apple forced them to let Apple redo their website. So their technology is
Tools are really,
top-notch.
yeah.
So,
And how long have you guys been around?
I've been working with Central Dauphin School District since I started back in '96. I know I don't look my age. I actually grew up in Lower Paxton Township,
Oh, wow.
so,
Okay.
yeah.
what was that? 2004.
2004, okay. It seems like you can offer a little bit more, or a lot more services, I should say, than what we have now.
Yeah, we
For
hope-
the
hope
employees.
to increase awareness and participation, for sure.
And the idea being that our goal is to be able to do that, but still the idea being to save them 0.5% in expenses on average per year and still be able to offer that additional service.
We have our first suspect in the back of the room that wants to meet with us.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants to be referred to as a suspect.
I know.
Probably not normally where we go there. Do we have any other board member questions or comments?
My only comment is that I think it's always wise to provide our employees with as many opportunities as possible. This is one more opportunity, and as long as I'm assured, and I've already heard Mr. Wolf say, this is voluntary. Our employees may choose whomever they wish to use as their financial planner. This is one opportunity.
Exactly right.
And at no cost to the township, correct?
Correct. And board members, if you desire to proceed further, it would be appropriate for us to prepare and provide you a professional services agreement for placement on a business meeting agenda in the future.
Is that the consensus of the board that we should move in that direction?
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what we'll do.
All right. We're done.
Very good.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
And we have another presentation on a proposed age-restricted housing plan, this involving a 149-acre tract of land on the east side of Colonial Road, north of Earl Drive, by Traditions of America. Mr. Wolf?
I'm going to, given that I haven't seen the presentation that they have, I'm going to let Traditions of America and David Bidson. I've met David? Tim? Okay, well, go ahead. The floor is yours.
And they brought their own television, so that's... Just in case. That's helpful tonight, since we're in transition on our own front. The only thing will be, we're going to want to have you near a microphone. I don't think we don't happen to have a handheld.
We're not in that position
We're
yet.
not
We're
there
still
yet.
on.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you need to speak from there, how about I set this microphone up here where it can pick you up, and then that way you can...
It's closer to mine, you can use.
Anyway, so good evening, everyone. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tim McCarthy. I'm the founder and managing partner at Traditions of America. I'm here tonight with my partner, David Biddison, and Ken Wenholt, our Director of Acquisitions and Entitlements. Delighted to be here to talk about the possibility of doing a Traditions of America age-qualified community here in Lower Paxton. I have a presentation that is under 20 minutes. It is mostly pictures, and there are very few numbers. So if you'll bear with me, I think it'll be worth our time, and I'll answer a lot of the questions you have. And of course, David and I will stay as long as necessary to answer any questions you do have. So thank you very much. My agenda is very brief and to the point. Why are we here? And I'm going to talk a lot about aging America and what that means to housing and what that means here in Lower Paxton Township. So that's my number one message tonight. I'm going to dig in. I'm going to peel through. Yeah, we all know America's aging, but really, what does that mean to housing? What are the real consequences and challenges that we all face? I'm going to dig into that a little. And then why Traditions of America? I mean, this is a $100 million development in your community. I think it's the most important residential community that may be done here, in the next 10, 20 years. And I think I'd like to talk a little bit about why we are uniquely qualified to do the planning and execution of the community. I'm going to talk a little bit about the preliminary concepts we have for our plan and give you a peek at what it might look like, and answer any questions you have. So, we know we're all aging, right? I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm a customer. I can't believe I'm a 55-plus customer, but I am. So we know we're aging, but this is a quote from a recent Pew Research Center study. Each day, approximately 10,000 baby boomers, and I see a lot of baby boomers in this room, the 78 million Americans born between 46 and 64, we turn 65. And when we turn 65, we are definitely looking for better housing choices, more accommodating housing choices. What does that look countrywide and locally? One third of all homes in America today are 55-plus households. And it's not just in Pennsylvania or the northeastern states, it's everywhere. In 99% of the counties across the country, 1/3 of the homes are 55-plus households. So there's a demand out there that's not being met, which is everywhere. That's 48 million households across the country. It's 58 million by 2022. Interestingly enough, I'll just also mention half of the new home sales this year in the country will be to 55-plus households. No decline in sight. Somewhere along the way, people got confused that, oh, the baby boom's going to come through here, and then aging Americans are going to trail up. Not true. Just continues on at a more normal growth rate. What do things look locally here in Lower Paxton and surrounding townships? What's the demand look like? Well, within a 10-mile radius of of Sandy Crawl site, we have 140,000 households right now. Of those households, 50,000 are 55-plus households. So over 1/3 of the local households are in this age cohort we're talking about. 30,000 in builder speak, 30,000 of those households are prime customers. What that really means is they have sufficient income, they have sufficient housing values, that they would likely consider this community for their next home. And that's a lot. I will tell you, we've done 22 communities in Pennsylvania. I'll get to that. That is a big number. That is a very significant market to serve. We don't run into those kind of numbers often. Another interesting stat from Harvard University, Joint Center for Housing Studies, a quote they recently read, only 1% of houses today have the 5 features necessary for universal design. Yet 38% of households 65 plus have at least one person living with a disability. I mean, we really have a completely, unsuitable housing that people cannot live in. And let me just talk about universal for design, those of you who are not familiar with all this terminology. The 5 key features in universal design are no step entry, single floor living, oversized doorways and hallways, knobs eliminated from the home designs with lever access through all doorways, and all the electrical switches adjusted to appropriate heights. Now, in a Traditions of America home, we've got a lot more than that, but we don't build any homes where we don't have all of those features. What does this mean for, or maybe why is this happening? I guess I'd like to address that for a minute. And the real problem is all of these folks that I'm talking about in this 30-mile or 10-mile radius here, most of them are living in homes that were built in the 60s and the 70s, maybe even some even in the 50s. So we're talking about homes that are 30 to 50 years old, and they're not going to be modified. They're split-level homes, they're two-story colonials, and they're townhomes. Those homes cannot affordably be transitioned to age in place. The other issue is, interestingly enough, and not so good for us baby boomers, at the same time we were going through a demographic explosion in this country, we also went through a recession. And home production in America fell off a cliff, and it fell off a cliff here in Pennsylvania. So it's really made this situation much more acute. Land use not accommodating to seniors. Again, David Biddison and I, we've worked on 22 communities we've approved. There's 10 other communities that we're working on right now. We typically are rewriting zoning. We have never, in the 20-year history of the company, found a municipality that had a zoning ordinance that would permit age-qualified housing as customers are seeking. So it's not something that's easily initiated, and as a result, there's very little production, especially among the home builders. Interestingly enough, despite all this demand, the public home builders have a very small level of age-qualified home production. So what are the consequences? Again, a recent study by the United States Center for Disease Control. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related deaths in older adults, and most falls occur in the home. Unbelievable. They go on in the next paragraph to say, it's not cancer, it's not heart disease, or healthcare challenges keeping older people from falling down at home. Simple thing. So, I think we quickly see that nationally and locally, what drives healthcare costs and, poor, living circumstances are the housing that they're stuck in. 1/3 of our older Americans today are falling down once a year. Third of the older Americans fall down once a year. That results in 2.5 million emergency room visits a year, 700,000 hospitalizations, which leads to 34 billion, that's right, billion with a B, healthcare costs amongst this group of people. In our sales office, though, I'll be honest with you, people don't talk about that. People don't say, oh gosh, I can't get up and down the stairs to my bedroom anymore. They just don't say that. But what they do tell you is that they're now isolated in their community. Their neighborhood, which they thought they would never leave, with their closest friends, lifelong friends, is no longer there because it's turned over and people have moved on. They no longer have the support network they have to help them live. Another recent story I just read a couple weeks ago, Washington Post, great article on the booming levels of depression among retired baby boomers. And what we were finding is these people are suffering depression because they're losing their they're leaving their jobs, their kids are leaving home, they're losing their neighborhoods, and the rates of depression are skyrocketing. Other financial problems, in many markets where you don't have good age-in-place housing, people are forced prematurely into very expensive housing choices, independent care facilities, and places like that. And even worse, here in Pennsylvania for years, we all know many people over 55 just left the area. They moved to Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, and Pennsylvania people all over the east coast of Florida because there weren't choices here in Pennsylvania. So, why Traditions of America? First of all, the company was founded in 1985 here in Pennsylvania, and we've been building homes in Pennsylvania since then. We built our first active adult community in 1997. Since 1997, we spend 100% of our time doing nothing but serving 55-plus customers. We've built over 5,000 homes here in Pennsylvania. We've built in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. We're planning communities in Virginia and in Ohio now. We've completed 22 communities across the state. We have 5 active communities. We'd love you to visit our communities if you ever get a chance. We're in the Lehigh Valley. We're in Lidditz, Pennsylvania. We're in Mechanicsburg. We're in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, State College. There's plenty of communities for you to visit, and most of our customers visit all of our communities. We're not a small company, and quite honestly, you can't be a small company in this business. It takes big investment, it takes a lot of infrastructure. We pour a lot of money into the amenities, into the sales operation, to the design operation, and fortunately, we're in a position where we're heavily capitalized, more heavily capitalized than any residential, any private residential developer I know in the state. Intangibles, I live in Chester County. David lives in Chester County. We're the only 2 owners of the company. There are no other shareholders. I went to school here in Pennsylvania. I lived here my whole life. When we have issues and for presentation like this, David and I come to the meetings. You'd be dealing with us. You will never wonder where we're going with these plans. 55 plus 101, I think it's worth going back to the basics, how we organize our communities. All of our communities are organized in conformity with HOPA, the Housing for Older Persons Act, passed in '95 during the Clinton administration. 80% of the residents have to be 55 plus. No one under 19 can be a permanent resident. All the homes are 1-floor living, although you can buy a 2nd floor option. The clubhouse is the social hub of the community, and all of our communities have a full-time lifestyle director that's organizing activities and programming at the community. They're professionally managed by an independent third-party management company. Our philosophy is pretty simple, and this is a picture of a home we recently built in Pittsburgh, which I think really, this picture tells you a lot. It's one of our least expensive homes, yet it's a beautiful, beautiful, great craftsman style design, but it's very affordable. Almost, I would say 80% of the people that lived in this primary market could afford this home. It's maintenance free. There's not one piece of material on the outside of that home that requires regular maintenance. You're able to age in place. You can see there's no steps to the entry. It's an oversized front door. All the hallways are oversized and has all the basic essentials of universal design. This community has resort-like amenities, has a 9,000-foot clubhouse, has a swim center, has a tennis center, pickleball, walking trails, has an adjacent conservation area with great hiking. We hire the best architects in the country to give us the most compelling designs, and all of the architects we use are specialists within the 55-plus space.
They don't drive?
They don't drive?
No.
No.
I can see access to the garage seems.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, but wouldn't you like your driveway to look like that?
Yeah, my driveway doesn't look like that.
That's right, this was.
A little hard on the landscape.
This was a model home right Oh, okay. The shrubs got torn out and we put the driveway. Good catch. So we've accomplished a lot in the industry, and I have to say that all of us, the Traditions team, are very proud. Last year, National Association of Home Builders, in a very competitive award process, voted Traditions of America 55-plus Builder of the Year, so all of our team was really, really proud of that recognition. Some community designs. Now we'll get into pictures. This is going to get easier. Eventually I'll get up to a video and we'll wrap up. I'll just let the pictures tell the story. This is the entrance to one of our sales offices in Western Pennsylvania. This is our design center. All of our communities have 2 full-time designers working with customers. We do big model parks, usually 8 model homes going to a sales operation. You can see the varied streetscape here. This is a specific plan that we're building right now in Lidditz, which has gotten a lot of public attention. I'll just point out some really, we have the clubhouse centered at the entrance, which is a pretty normal feature we have. We've got a big outside amenity area. We've got little pocket parks on cul-de-sacs. We've got walking trails throughout the community that are integrated with the township trail system. And you can see we have other pocket parks and small water features and gazebos scattered throughout the community. And these are the same kind of design features we applied here in Lower Paxton. Again, this is a very typical kind of prototype Traditions of America clubhouse. Swimming pool day, swimming pool at night.
Tennis courts.
More pickleball than tennis these days. Really, really great spaces. I mean, you have to visit our clubhouses. I mean, the architecture is great, but then the interior design is over the top. Really, we hold nothing back there.
And you sit down with the prospective occupant and help to design the interior.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, baby boomers are all custom home buyers. I mean, we are not a production home builder. We spend minimum of 60 days with every customer customizing their home.
Ground level or both?
Everything.
I mean, I'm talking basement.
Pardon me?
Basement,
Yeah,
are they single single
Single 20% people might order.
single level? As you get older, most times you don't want the up and down.
Who do you use for the builder?
Pardon me?
Who's the builder?
We're the builder. We do the whole thing,
Oh, you build also?
completely integrated.
Okay, because I looked at your website and they said something about Landmark.
We also own a multifamily development company called Landmark Communities in Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
This is the bar and these are all clubhouse photos here. This is a picture of a community we just finished in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And again, it's not just, this is an indoor pool we recently built in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. It's not just the facilities itself too. Again, it's the programming. And the program, these places are bustling. There's always something to do here. When you just look at kind of the variation that we have in our models, nothing's cookie cutter. And we have siding, brick, masonry, side entries, corner entries, front porches. And again, the interiors, as you can see, are all pretty nice. Okay. Let's look at the Lower Paxton plan quickly. So here's the site, Sandy Crawl's property on Colonial Road. And in this preliminary plan, you can see the kind of winding street plan we have, which results in about 50% of the total acreage being retained as open space. And 23 acres of that open space is this area, which would be dedicated or restricted as a conservation area. We would build 250 homes on 149 acres, so it's not a very dense site, and just the physical characteristics of the site really don't allow more density than this. We'd build an elite amenity package, as I've been describing for you tonight, with a clubhouse, swimming pool, tennis, pickleball, extensive walking trails. This is a picture of our entrance to our community, Silver Spring in Mechanicsburg, and I just like this picture because this is what it looks like when you walk up to most of our communities. I mean, the traffic is just non-existent. So, take a look at the numbers with the plan that we have here in Lower Paxton. A 55-plus community, according to the Engineers Institute, will generate about 26% of the traffic count, peak traffic count, as a traditional community, non-age restricted community. So in our case, our 250 homes are really the equivalent of a traditional neighborhood of 65 homes in terms of what impact you can expect. The fiscal impacts are obviously significant. The homes are, valuable homes. Almost $21 million of total tax revenues would be generated by this community over a 10-year period. The school district takes the lion's share of that with $12.5 million in proceeds being allocated to the school district. County gets about $5.6 million. The township gets $1.5 million. And then we have another over $1 million of transfer tax that gets shared. And of course, zero school taxes. So we do have a pretty dramatic, windfall for the school district and overall impact. Over the last 2 years, I had a chance to serve on the board at the Bipartisan Policy Center, advising some of the congressional committees on what we could do about this housing shortage. And my boss there during this assignment was Henry Cisneros, former Secretary of HUD. And he said, with the over 65 population poised to grow so dramatically, increasing the supply of affordable homes suitable for seniors must be an urgent focus of national policy. Well, that sounded great. But then, I went back to Pennsylvania and said, what's the federal government going to do? It really comes down to us at the local level. We're going to fix this problem or not. And that's why Traditions of America is in business, and that's why I'm here today talking about the possibility of doing this community in Lower Paxton. And sum up real quickly what we think the benefits are. A community like this is a great way to care for the seniors that already live here. It's a great way to maintain open space that you couldn't in another residential type development. You avoid any school costs. You mitigate traffic. You reduce sewer loads. And you have a terrific fiscal benefit. And with that said, I'm done talking.
Okay. What you're here for.
To answer questions, I'm going to leave you with one very quick video where you can hear from our residents, and I think it'll give you a good flavor of what we're all about. If you want
take charge. I've become more of an outgoing person now. I think it's kind of forced me. These people work together, they enjoy together, and I have to be part of it now. I'm beginning to realize this is really good.
My name's John Roman. I live at Bridle Path, and we've been there for a year and a half, and I love it because every night is Friday night and every day is Saturday.
Best move you have made. It was an excellent choice. One day we were in the house, and I just yell out, "I love my house." He thought I was crazy, but it was just great. It's just great. We really love the place.
When you're shopping for retirement, at some point you stop looking, you say, this is the place.
I knew also that moving into a community when it's new, when everybody is new, was the best way to be part of a big group.
It has just enriched my life so much. As we get older, sometimes we get in the same groove and the same, I'll use the word rut. So it just opened things up to my life, to new friends, new experiences, new happenings.
My new friends at TOA are so friendly and warm. I was very surprised how quick I made friends when I got there. It's like you lived there your whole life. They just welcome you in.
We really are ambassadors for this whole thing. We just love, and we always talk about how much we love it.
Thank you for your patience and attention, and David and I are happy to.
If you could please go to the podium so to answer any questions we might have.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, and I don't want to take up all of the board's time, but I compliment you on your forethought and how you put this together. I'm fortunate in that I spent over 12 years of my life with the Leader organization as their vice president. And we've never reached this kind of a level. And I mean this as a compliment, I hope, when I say that there's shades of similarity to the villages down in Florida.
Sure.
Because you have more than a domicile.
But the nice thing, this is here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, well, you can do a lot of things down in the villages, but
That's true. That's a terrific community.
yeah, it's a total community, and I like the outdoor pool, the indoor pool, et cetera. I could occupy a lot of time asking you questions, but generally, square feet.
Our plans probably start around 1,400 feet and may go up to around 3,000 feet.
Okay, so you've got some real flexibility. Is there a buy-in?
No, it's a traditional real estate purchase. So you have a fee simple deed, and you're a member of we organize the communities under the Planned Community Act. So you have a monthly community fee, but you own real estate, fee simple, and you have a monthly community contribution for grass cutting, snow removal, running the clubhouse, insurance costs, things like that.
What do those run?
They're running around, I would say, like $250 to $270 right now. So, and when you look at the details of what's in there, for most people when they make a move, that's a big savings from where they are in their existing home.
I know it's somewhat premature, but could you go back to the map, the plan?
Sure.
Maybe it's the distance. I just wanted you to point out for me where Colonial Road is,
Sure.
so I could see the entrance. I know this is premature and it's way down the road, but nonetheless, since we're talking concepts, I'd still like to be able to see where that occurs.
Oh, yeah, if you have that, yeah, that's great. I can't get the map to come up with that.
Gee, sometimes the old-fashioned ways are better.
Yeah, that works.
You want to point it out, David?
So this is where the site is located. This is Devon.
This is Devonshire. This is Cologne.
That's what I mean, I pretty much know.
Acupuncturist is right here.
Oh, yeah, because that's where Sandy lives.
And then it bounds on the north on.
Right, Sandy, you're in the middle, correct? Okay, I got my direction.
The Earl
Goes
Drive.
up to Earl, because there's the plot there that's, right, the offices. And I know Sandy owns
So
over
it's
there.
not on the opposite side of Earl.
In your overall plan,
Appears to be all south of Earl Drive.
main entrance fall.
It
I think, no, it's premature, because we'll have to have this discussion again, I know, but in much more detail.
The main entrance is coming off Colonial Park, so this is Devonshire.
Right,
The main entrance comes off
Colonial. Okay, and this is where Sandy lives now, so where would your main entrance be? Okay, how close to that is the traffic light? Because we have a traffic light at Devonshire and Colonial.
Yeah, I think it's about 1,200 feet.
Okay, so you may need to take that into consideration when you're, okay.
Definitely.
That may or may not be what you need to work with, but you'll need to check all that out. Okay, but that just gives me an idea, thank you.
So it's south of Earl, because in our packet it said north of Earl.
Yeah, it's south of Earl.
Okay, because our packet said
Yeah,
north.
it's south of
And
Earl.
that's why I thought it was on the other side of Earl. When you keep saying Sandy's property, that's south of Earl, so, okay.
Robin, that's exactly why I knew it was south. I
Yeah,
knew
because it
couldn't be
said north, and, you know, where they're saying, so, okay.
All right, so this is 81. This is Devonshire. And this is Cologne.
Yeah, they always tell you, yeah.
Earl Drive is
They're not cheap.
I'm just curious to see what they say. I just had a question about the pricing. You're saying affordable. Could you just tell me approximately what the starting might be?
Well, we haven't determined any pricing yet. And by the time we finish all of our due diligence and research, I mean, we're gonna customize the pricing to kind of what we find in the local market, you know, to maximize the number of people that will, you know, be able to afford the home. I would think we're gonna end up in the mid to high threes for base prices.
The reason I ask is our packet said mid-200s, and then when I went to your website, it was 3 to 7, so that's why I was curious. Okay.
You know, across Pennsylvania, that's probably fair, 3 to 7. But when, we don't have any base homes anywhere that sell for $700,000. But I mean, we will often sell a home for $375,000, and someone may put $500,000 of custom work into that home.
So mid 300s to high.
Our list prices for a base house will run probably from the low threes to low fours.
Okay. Wait, you said you had one in the general, or what's the closest facility or area to Lower Paxton?
Mechanicsburg to the west and Lidditz to the east. Mechanicsburg and Lidditz would be our two closest communities.
Okay.
What is that zoned out there?
R1?
R1?
R1 RC, yeah.
So will this require proposed zoning changes, or they fit?
Well, we'd like to talk, we have a dialogue about that. We see the age-restricted classification that you have. Our first take was that probably with some very modest text amendments, it would fit.
Okay.
But, we'd like to have that discussion.
Okay.
We're square one with you here.
You need to have that discussion.
Yes.
That's where you need to start.
Right.
Any other comments from the board? Do we have any public input? Yes, sir, please come to the podium and give us your name and address.
I'm Charles Sproul. I live at 4045 Greystone Drive in Stonegate, which is a condo community occupied primarily by seniors. And I certainly agree with the presentation that there's a need for more senior housing and housing that is designed for seniors. Essentially, the question I have is, once seniors are residents of your community, what kind of assistance does your organization provide if they reach the point where they need more assistance, where they need housekeeping assistance, if they need assisted living assistance, if they need transition to a medical facility in terms of nursing care? Do you provide those kinds of linkages and services? Just what does your organization offer?
You know, that's a great question, and I just want to be really clear. Our product line is 55-plus active adult housing. So by no means are we any type of healthcare organization, or do we have a healthcare component built into to our program. Having said that, it's pretty routine that at the startup of the community, we develop partnerships and affiliations with the key local healthcare organizations who do provide all of those in-home healthcare services or elderly assistance services kind of on an a la carte basis. And that has worked seamlessly in communities across Pennsylvania. And people are able to get those services again at a very reasonable cost. The services that they need and not other services they don't need, and still make it affordable without transitioning to a more acute type of care facility and moving down what I call the spectrum of senior housing toward considering independent care, congregate care, choices like that, which we are not. And, you know, we are, I think I tried to make the point clear. I mean, again, there's 30,000 senior households in this market area. You know, we're out to try to, we're only a drop in the bucket toward helping this problem.
Real quick, I thought of something since I have you. Is all of your projects you have around the region, are they all priced kind of like this? I know local markets dictate, but are you generally always in this kind of is this your typical clientele? Do you have anything that's more affordable in your menu of projects you may have?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Local market dictates. I mean, you know, we're a for-profit company. We need to sell X number of homes per month to stay in business, and we do. I mean, we sell. There is absolutely not another builder in Pennsylvania who sells homes at half our pace. So the absorption of homes has been remarkable for 20 years.
Okay. Well, I hope people are taking advantage of the retirement plans that we looked at earlier, because.
Amen.
Good point, Mr. Judd. Do we have any other public questions or input? Well, we have some. Mrs. Prawl.
Sandy Prawl. I don't know if you can hear me. I have a problem with the voice tonight. 1001 Homestead Avenue, Harrisburg, in Lower Paxton Township. I just wanted to state that the property we're talking about tonight was one of the original land grants of Pennsylvania given by William Penn's family. It was titled Bennington. It was over 500 acres originally. And later families who lived on the property included Crumb's Mill Road. There was a mill. There were many uses on that property to support the families that lived there, like butchering, like mill, whatever. And so that's a history that our family has considered greatly. Right now, there are 4 generations of the same family that own that property. And we have looked several years for a good use and a good provider for a good use. And we feel very comfortable with what Traditions can provide and how they do it and their quality. We've talked to many people at different developments that they have built. We have not had negatives. Everybody's been very positive. And so we're hoping that one family with 4 generations who are using that property now, and 6 deer hunters, bow and arrow deer hunters, would now morph into hundreds of people enjoying that property and living successfully on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Does anybody have questions for me?
Do we have any other questions or comments from the public? Okay, if not, I guess we're ready to start additional conversations with staff. Thank you. We're going to move on now to items 6 and 7, and before we do, I will have to recuse myself from participating in the discussion and decision-making process on these 2 items. They involve a company called Penn Waste Incorporated. Penn Waste is a periodic financial corporate contributor to my business, the Lincoln Institute of Public Opinion Research, so therefore I would have a direct financial conflict, so I will recuse myself, and for the purpose of moving forward these 2 items, turn the chair over to Mr. Chrisman.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Item 6 on our agenda has to deal with the initial review of bid specification for the collection of solid waste, recyclables, and leaf waste. It is that time. We do this every 5 years. It's before us for discussion so that our staff may, in fact, begin to prepare those bid specs and circulate them. And the period of time that we would be talking about would be from July 2nd, 2018 to July 1st, 2023. And with that, I'll ask Mr. Wolf to give us information. I'm assuming, and I shouldn't assume anything, Mr. Wolf, that what we're looking at is that which is the current bid specs that we've used in the past.
Actually,
Are there any?
Mr. Vice Chairman and board members, the last time that we bid for this service, we did it on a joint intermunicipal bid with West Hanover, East Hanover, and South Hanover townships. So this bid document is been modified significantly from that effort. My understanding is that the other 3 municipalities are going to do their own thing and we'll do ours.
Okay.
Board members, this is a draft bid specifications. The contract for services with our current provider, Waste Management, will expire, actually, I believe it's on July 2nd of this year. We have about 6 months. In accordance with Act 101, the state's Municipal Solid Waste and Recycling Act, Lower Paxton Township can contract with the hauler for 5 years with the potential for a 5-year extension thereof. Our last bid for services was 10 years ago. It was a 5-year bid with a 5-year extension. The total cost of services provided in accordance with this bid, I estimate if we extend through to 10 years, will be approximately $2.6 million a year for a total of about $26 million. Quite honestly, this is the largest bid that this Board of Supervisors ever entertains. And you'll see on there's a sample, second page, a sample advertisement for bids. We haven't actually established the dates, so the dates themselves kind of fluctuate all over. But this is a standard competitive bid process. I would expect that there will be at least 3 qualified haulers that would be interested in this contract for services, if not more. The bid provides for a bid bond of $250,000, a 15% performance bond, which actually decreases over time based upon the amount of the outstanding contract. And of course, we have a pre-submission conference in regard to this type of an effort. Board members, I'm going to go through the bid specs quickly. I would like to note that the first section, which is between pages 1 and 16, are kind of boilerplate, but there are some modifications to those pages, and if you can turn first to page 4 of the bid specifications. There's several provisions on page 4 that are obviously different than our normal boilerplate. Section 1.12, exclusive right to the successful bidder. You should be aware that once you enter into this process and bid for solid waste and recyclables, the successful bidder has the exclusive right to collect from all qualifying residential and multifamily units in Lower Paxton Township. No other hauler in Lower Paxton Township is permitted to collect solid waste and recyclables. Secondly, disposal and tipping fee. The successful bidder shall deliver all municipal solid waste or garbage to the Dauphin County approved facility, which right now is commonly referred to as the Harrisburg incinerator. So we are flow directed, and all waste must go to the Harrisburg facility by the Dauphin County Solid Waste Management Plan. For leaf waste, all leaf waste is directed to the township's compost facility. And then for recyclables, all recyclables by the next item on the agenda will be directed to the Penn Waste MRF. MRF is basically a large recycling facility that collects, processes, and markets all recyclable material, and we direct ours in Lower Paxton Township to the Penn Waste facility. Board members, on page 5, something that's also unique with this bid specification is a fuel adjuster. Should the cost of fuel increase or decrease by certain amounts, the contractor has a right to an increase in the cost for services or must decrease the cost for services based upon what's happening in fuel. So in short, board members, we are narrowing our cost factors in the collection of solid waste and recyclables by directing where the flow goes and adding in a fuel escalator or de-escalator. There's also a provision later on in the specification that says that any changes in municipal regulations, i.e. should Dauphin County change or increase the cost of services at its solid waste facility, those costs can be passed on as well. So essentially, as we go through the bids, you'll see that the costs for services we're bidding are truly only collection costs. And we have factored out all other costs by means of the specifications. Board members, next thing that you should be aware of is page 7, the basis for bid award, paragraph 1.17. If you look at the third paragraph, the basis for bid award will be primarily the cost per month per dwelling unit for regular collection service over the contract period, including any alternative bid that the board may choose to establish. Regular collection service currently includes the cost of weekly municipal solid waste collection and transportation, including the disposal of one bulk item per week, and the cost of weekly recyclables collection and transportation and delivery. And weekly recyclables also includes leaf waste. Now, the board reserves the right that although the basis of the bid award will be primarily the monthly cost per dwelling unit for regular collection service, consideration will be given to the vehicle fuel adjuster and the percentages contained in the contract extension. Remember, this bid specifications is for 5 years with an alternate for a contract extension for an additional 5 years. I believe, board members, in the general specifications, I've covered everything I need to cover, and that means that we need to now go to page 17, which is municipal solid waste collection. Currently, these bid specifications are written in accordance with the services that we currently receive for trash collection. Residents have the ability to put out on a weekly basis 4 containers and 1 bulk item for collection at curbside. These specifications provide for that, as is current practice and policy. I will note that in previous board discussions in 2017, board members did talk about changing the 4 containers of municipal solid waste, which are basically 36-gallon cans or trash bags, to going to 2 64-gallon totes, for want of a better term. If you happen to be somebody who frequents a beach house, you'll see the rolling totes that are either 64 gallons or 92 gallons. It's my expectation that to maintain the same service in Lower Paxton Township, we could go to 2 64-gallon totes for municipal solid waste collection, and then probably 1 64-gallon tote for recyclables. Board members, I haven't written the specs that way. At some point in the near future, I'll need direction in regard to that.
George, when we talked about that, wasn't the price of those pretty pricey?
The price is pricey, and our current carrier could not do it. When we talked to him, and there was 2 years remaining on the contract, and he couldn't amortize the cost over those 2 years. However, if you would do it and require the contractor to provide them, he would have the potential to amortize the cost over 10 years, and it would be something that would obviously have to be addressed by all bidders.
Right. And I was going to wait till you were through, because I have 3 things I was going to throw in for discussion, and Robin, that is one of them. So, George, could you complete your part, and then we'll come back, or are you finished that we can start talking about items?
Well, in regard to collection services, I did want to note that as we currently have, and people may not be familiar, but there is a carry-out service for people with disabilities, and that includes trash and bulk items. There is the provision that municipal facilities and fire company facilities are included at no cost and receive a 6 cubic yard dumpster. There's performance standards, there's standards on how we address holidays, but I think, quite honestly, at least in the past, the only item that the board has talked about changing was the type of container.
Right.
If there are other items, we can certainly address them. We have time.
So, are you finished?
I'm finished with trash.
All right. They're not recognizing before earlier today that I was going to be chairing this particular. I have 3 issues that I would like the board to discuss, and that would be, Robin, the one that you have identified that George has announced is the size of the containers, that we include that in our bid specs. But also, I'd like to include, at least for discussion, I'd like us to consider having the handler, because we're going into a new contract, to actually provide the containers, rather than us trying to buy them. And I can just imagine the logistics of trying to buy them and then distribute them from here. That just, for me, that's unworkable. But I'd like that to be considered. And also, I'd like for consideration for biweekly leaf pickup.
Biweekly leaf pickup.
Biweekly, because of the timing. I think it's easier in the language if it becomes biweekly, they know it's biweekly as opposed to this month has so many, Wednesdays, if that's your pickup day, or Friday, and then it throws the cycle off, and then I know I get neighbors calling me and saying, is this the day that they're going to come pick up?
Board members, if you would change to biweekly, currently, we have a total of 17 leaf waste collections during the warm weather months, plus 2 Christmas tree collections in January. If you go to every other week, you would end up with 19 warm weather month collections plus 2 Christmas trees for a total of 21. So you would increase services in going to a biweekly collection.
Those are just my thoughts for consideration, and maybe I'm a lone opinion here, and that's okay.
I know, Gary, you said about the containers, those things are heavy. I'm just thinking of women that live by themselves.
And I understand
Yeah,
that. That's
they
why.
our neighbor got one off the internet. Evidently, somebody had one and he sold it on the internet, and that's what he's using now. And I've already gone over because they're laying in the middle of the street and picked it up. And I know
I've
that's
done
what
that.
everybody's going to, but those babies are heavy.
Are the 64s, do they have wheels?
Yes.
Yeah.
What these cases...
Because I know the ones I have, I bought with wheels so that whoever at my house takes the garbage out to the street, it's not as difficult.
What these containers allow for
I
is
didn't mention who.
automated collection.
That was going to be my question. Is that that's the reason we move in this direction?
If you move in that direction, it would be, all the haulers would have automated collection, yes.
So if you don't have that sitting at the right place, the truck will not be able to pick it up. Will they get out of the truck to get?
There are times they have to get out of the truck, yes.
Now,
And you don't have to decide that tonight.
Yeah.
Right,
Does that
exactly.
affect our cost? Does that lower the cost since they have fewer personnel, though?
Automated collection could reduce our costs, but it's going to be offset by the cost of the containers. Remember, we're talking almost 15,000 customers. Most of those customers are going to need 3 containers, so you're looking at 45,000 totes.
I think he quoted us $100,000 when he was here.
Yeah, it's going to be an expensive bill to pay.
Yeah. I just wonder how much the average bill's going to go up. We pay that quarterly, right?
Correct.
Yeah, we pay that quarterly. How much that's going to go up with the purchase of the totes?
Board members, you would also have the ability to bid any of these things as an alternate.
Right.
You could bid the
And that may
current
be the
program.
way to do it.
and-
That way we can pick and choose.
I'd like to see, I don't want to put it in, just that's it.
No, but we
I
could
would
put
like
it
to
as
do
an alternate, absolutely.
Either what, do it, they can bid what we have now and then bid what the totes, just to see what the price is, how expensive it's going to be.
All right, because I know there are other questions that we want to raise, but right now we've got 3 on the table. Therefore, if we can just reach some consensus on these, and that way we can keep addressing the issues. I don't want to get all the issues, and then we have to go back and try to.
Well, board members, let me complete my presentation.
I'm sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, I am done, but I can
Okay.
wrap up kind of by saying that we have what I would say is a relatively mature program at this point in time. It's 10 years ago when we issued our bid specifications, it was the second time we had bid. We've been running this program now in various forms for 20 years. The most recent augmentation of this program was the leaf waste collection part of it. And there was a time when Lower Paxton Township itself, through its own forces, was collecting leaf waste. We now have a mature program that works very well. I think what you're looking at are minor tweaks to the program, types of containers, automated or not, increasing biweekly leaf waste. But I don't think you're looking at wholesale changes to the collection program as I see it.
Okay. All right, with having said that, on the containers, is there consensus that we would ask for an alternate with the 264 units? I'm just looking for consensus because we need to give Mr. Wolf direction when he starts to prepare them.
I want a bid with what we have now and then a bid with the containers.
Say again, please?
A bid with what we have now and then a bid with what it would
Right,
cost for the containers.
just as an alternate.
That's just mine.
We have consensus that we include that item as an alternate. Okay. Then, could we bring to closure any further discussion on the weekly leave pickup, biweekly, I'm sorry. I don't know how you all feel about that one.
I can do that as an alternate, too.
Yeah, I'd
Add
like
2
to
more
see
weeks.
what the
Okay, then-
difference is.
All right, and in those, in the second, and the one we discussed first, in the alternate bids for our containers, do I have consensus that, in fact, we ask the hauler to provide the containers rather than us doing that? I just think for us to do it, it's logistically a nightmare for our staff. But I think that could be part of the alternate when we're asking for the 264 units and that the hauler, in fact, would provide the containers.
Eventually, the residents are going to pay for them because it's going to be included, I would think. in
Yeah,
the-
it will be included in there.
It's
But
gonna
I just don't, personally, as a board member and as a resident, I don't want to have to suddenly show up here and I have to sign my name and my address and check out and get my 2 containers and put them in my Mini Cooper that I can't get them home.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a Cooper, but if I did, it'd be difficult. So that's why I'm thinking, let the hauler be responsible. And that's the only reason I'm suggesting that.
What the haulers will do, any one of them, is there are actually, the companies who make these things provide services for the rollout of 45,000 containers. They'd probably stage, the hauler would hire the company to provide everybody with their container. They would stage in a township park, and over the course of several weeks, they would make sure that the containers are brought in, assembled, and delivered. And neither Lower Paxton nor the hauler would actually be doing it. It would be a third party as a subcontractor.
But put the onus of responsibility on them. So if what I have consensus for that, do we include that as part of the alternate? Just share.
I
or
certainly
just-
can. That would be,
But I can't tell you to do that, Mr. Wolf. I need help here.
I mean, I want to do it the way, is that the industry, is that the way other municipalities do it? Or are we going to be the only one asking to do it? I don't know.
No, other Susquehanna Township already has implemented this plan. They already have those trash cans already that are consistent. And I know there's somebody else I know besides
Susquehanna
Susquehanna.
has the
Well, I know they do, but I'm saying, I think there's another municipality that,
the trend in the industry is to go to the totes and the automated collection.
right.
But he's asking, how do we go about getting them out to the people and all that? So it makes perfect sense. I mean, I think it doesn't hurt to put that in or to informally inquire. I don't know, is that, whatever's normal, and whatever makes sense. Having not gone through this process and having just heard this idea, 5 minutes ago, I assume that that's the most logical option, or that that's an industry option, or.
Yeah, I agree with Gary because people aren't going to come to a park and pick them up. You're going to have people say, well, I'm just going to use what I have now. But that time doesn't suit me.
So let's make it as easy as possible
Let them
for our people, that's all. Okay, then we can move forward. I know, Chris, you have another question that you want to raise, didn't you?
No, I'm good. We talked.
You're okay? Is there anything else that any of us can think about that we would think that should be included? Okay, is there anyone, Tim?
Thank you. Yes, I'm Tim Murphy, 1524 Pine Hollow Road. I didn't hear a whole lot of discussion about the recycling program, and I don't know how we stand compared to what the state is kind of expecting or targeting as a recycling volume. I think what we want to do is provide some kind of incentives for people to recycle more rather than give them even bigger containers to throw more things away. Personally, I don't want 2 64-gallon containers on my property. I use a 32-gallon can now, which most of the time is less than half full. And for most weeks, I can probably reverse, I have a 20-gallon recycling can, and I'd be better off reversing those, but I don't have a lid for that 20-gallon can, so I can't put my trash in it. Otherwise, I'd be doing that. But two 64-gallon totes are going to just take up a tremendous amount of space that I don't want to devote in my garage. I mean, I just don't see a reason for it. I would suggest, if you're going to do this, provide one and offer to the residents the option of buying a second one that could still be provided through this contract, but let the individuals decide if they really need that huge volume. That just sounds tremendous to me, that you're going to give somebody 128 cubic feet or gallons rather, of waste capacity every week.
And Tim, I don't think...
I will note, that's what we give them now.
I know that.
Okay.
I know that. But how many people really put out that much trash? In the municipalities that have these totes, I never see more than one in front of a house because they are so huge.
Do they have to buy two? Or do you have to have two?
You don't have to,
No.
no.
Because I probably...
It would be a maximum of two. My point in saying two, board members, was that
Right.
you currently allow 436. I think the other side of the coin is you would have a portion of this community that would go nuts if you said you can only put out 164.
Right.
You don't
So
want
if you
to-
don't, if you don't want to have two, you don't have to have two, right?
Right.
If you don't want two, you don't have to have two. I know they take up
If somebody
a lot
brought
of
me
space.
two of them, I'd tell them to take one away. I wouldn't want it.
Well, I guess they wouldn't do that. I don't know how we would
Right,
do
you
that.
could, that's... I'll
You're
probably
right, you're
take
right.
one.
I don't know that I could use that, and I don't know that I have space for it. But if you don't have to take two, then you don't have to
Yeah.
take two.
I'm a family of just two now because I'm an empty nester. I'll probably take only one.
And the other part that I started with was incentivizing more recycling. If somebody wants to throw away that much stuff, then maybe they need to be paying a premium to do that and have them buy that second tote. Just a thought.
Okay,
So
thank
there
you.
would be one
I'm
tote.
mulling that
One
over,
tote
yeah.
for,
Wait, one at a time, please.
there would be one tote for recycling, and you could have up to two totes for your garbage.
Correct.
Could.
They wouldn't even fit on the pad that we have where our garbage cans are now.
The actual footprint at the base of a 64-gallon tote is no bigger than a garbage can, a 36-gallon garbage can. But they stand higher and they
Yeah,
go
they're
out.
definitely bigger.
Yeah, but
They have a
their
small-
bottom base is basically the same size.
Right, on the other side of the coin, I have two sitting there. I can now have just one sitting there.
Correct.
And the whole point is, or one of the major points is, without it, you don't have the automated,
Correct.
these are required
Yes.
for that.
And
You
I
say-
do like the idea
Mr.
of
Crispin,
the
you say you
alternate
put
bids,
out
look at it
one.
both
Are you
ways.
going-
I think that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
Definitely.
Thanks very much.
When we're talking about space, I said, on my pad, I have two cans. I know I'm allowed to put out four, but I only ever put out two maximum, like holidays or wherever.
Well, we
But
put-
with this new system, I will have one container, not two, because I'll have a 64 unit.
Well, we put out one for trash and one for recyclables.
Okay,
So that's two cans.
yes.
Right.
It would still be, you'd still put out two cans.
Because you
I
can't
have,
mix,
I
you're
have,
not
I
supposed to
could,
mix them.
I could have up to four.
Right.
I don't need four, there are only two of us like you. So therefore, I only have two cans in the event I need two cans for trash, like holidays or, if we're entertaining. What I'm saying is I'll be able to eliminate those two containers for one container.
Okay.
For trash, yes. And another one for recycling, yes. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to declare,
Right.
yeah.
Anything else we need to give George?
My plan was to do a second draft and bring it back to you the
Right,
next
and that was my last comment. May we have another draft, please? All right, having completed item 6, we need to move to item 7, which is the review of the existing single-stream recycling services agreement with Penn Waste.
Board members,
Go ahead, I'm sorry,
Okay, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Wolf.
I'm going to explain what this is, and Mr. Stein's going to explain how we do it. This is unique to Lower Paxton Township. Very few municipalities in Pennsylvania actually regulate the recyclables from curbside. Pretty much what most municipalities do is allow the hauler to take possession of the recyclables as his property at curbside and take them to wherever the hauler thinks is the best place to get rid of them. In Lower Paxton Township, we direct the hauler to take their recyclables to the Penn Waste facility, which is now in, they've opened a new facility in 2015, which I believe is in West Manchester Township in York County. And as a result, in directing that all of Lower Paxton Township's recyclables go to this facility, Lower Paxton Township itself is paid a minimum of $5 per ton for the materials. And that price is further defined in how it's broken out based upon a handling fee that Penn Waste has in paragraph 3. This agreement was signed in July of 2015 and exists on for a 3-year period, so it runs through to July of 2018. It would be appropriate for the Board of Supervisors to, in my mind, extend this type of an agreement. It takes a lot of the questions from the haulers off the table on how do I get rid of recyclables. How we got into this agreement, though, is something that Steve can explain to you legally.
There is normally you would think if you're going to sell something that you have to bid that, so you get the best price. However, there's a statutory provision which allows us to enter into a contract with whoever we want to in order to sell recyclables. And that's what happened with Penn Waste at that time. In the beginning, I remember, I think the attractive part at that point in time as far as recycling was fiber, whether it was paper or cardboard or whatever it might be. And I think because of that, in the early goings, the township, I think, did pretty well off the sale of recyclables. Since that time, those markets have been generally
really
down.
dropped. Yeah.
So I think George, we would probably getting the minimum for some time now, right?
We're getting the minimum. We expect to receive in 2018 maybe $20,000. There were years where our return was between $150,000 and $200,000.
I remember just 4 years ago when I came on, it was like 60,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how this arrangement came about.
Right. And a question for either Mr. Wolf or Mr. Stein, but I think we're rather limited even in the organizations that actually do this work.
I think that
So,
Penn Waste may have the only facility.
Right. So, it's not a case where we can even go looking.
Correct.
That is my understanding. At the time we entered into this agreement, there was also a facility at Modern Landfill. Since that point in time, Modern Landfill's MRF, as they refer to them, has, my understanding, closed. I don't know of a local facility other than the Penn Waste facility. If you don't take it to the Penn Waste facility and you're a hauler, you would have to have a transfer site where you would bulk package it and haul it to some other location, which increased costs. So I think even though we don't receive an economic benefit to the township anymore by this agreement, it does, in my mind, help us control costs among haulers over time.
Right. And provide the service.
My question would be is, does the board want us to contact Penn Waste and ask them to negotiate an extension of this agreement?
And that would be the question.
Let's do it, yeah.
Board members.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
Based on the information we've received both from Mr. Wolf and from council, I think we need to move forward.
And if it's
But that's just my opinion
helping the
again.
hauler,
Yeah.
the main thing, it's helping the hauler.
Yes. Okay, we have consensus, Mr. Wolf. Would you please implement the process of negotiating and then returning with our proposals?
Will do.
Thank you, sir. We then are ready to move on to item 8. The chair will relinquish the chair back to Mr. Henry.
If I could just make one comment.
Oh,
Mr. Wolf,
sure.
can you add in the
Yeah, sure,
newsletter
yeah.
the next time it comes out, a list of what is recyclable and what's not recyclable?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'll be right up front with you. I thought plastic bags were recyclable till I was reading this, and I see they're not.
Ms. Lindsay, are you finished?
I'm finished.
Thank you. Mr. Henry.
I will say I now know more about the trash disposal habits of my colleagues than I ever wanted to, but I guess you asked for more transparency, and that's what you're getting here.
How many containers would you like, Mr. Henry?
Never mind, I was going to make a comment. I know where he takes his trash.
Yes, I just take my overflow to the Chrisman residence and let it at that. Okay, on that note, let's move on to item number 8. And we asked Mr. Stein to provide us with information as to how we could go about the formation of an historical society for Lower Paxton Township. Mr. Stein, what have you found?
Well, the township itself has no ability to form a nonprofit organization. You have the ability to form an authority, that's in the code, but since the code does not provide that the township has the authority to do that, it does not have that authority. But with regard to historical societies, you have a couple of choices. You can either, if the township wants to, you can acquire, the township can acquire its own historical properties, whether it be real or personal, or you can actually provide funding to a nonprofit organization which has formed a historical society, or any combination thereof that you want to. You just can't organize a separate organization. So if the township wants to do it on its own, it certainly can, or if it wants to just donate money to an organization that organizes, you can do that as well.
Okay. So I see some interested parties in the audience tonight. I guess at this point, the question might be what those who want to have a historical society, how they would like to proceed. As I understand it, then the options would be that private citizens could form their own 501c3 nonprofit entity, but the township could provide funding.
Correct.
To allow that to occur, because there are legal and other costs associated with forming a 501c3. And we could also, if it were the decision of the board at any given time, make purchases of historical properties either for us or provide funding to that C3, correct?
That is correct.
So I guess that sort of puts the ball back in your court as to how you would like to proceed. I don't know if you have any thoughts you might want to share with us, Mr. Murphy?
Joe Murphy, 5877 Laurel Street. I'm thinking that we could still have a Lower Paxton Township association or society. We want to be careful on the naming because society has become very dated, and we sort of want to have this as a little bit more of a modern group.
For old things.
A modern group for old things.
We'd
Sorry,
like
Joe.
to get, that's all right, that's fine, your time's coming, Gary.
It's like jumbo shrimp.
Oh, I think it's.
It works.
It worked. Jumbo shrimp.
You really wanted to get me tongue-tied, didn't you? See, you weren't here for the presentation, you missed it. But we had a short presentation.
But he was here for much of the history, so there's...
Oh, yeah, that's true, thank you, thank you. I think it's very important that the township has something, and what I was looking for was to have the backing of the township so that when we did go after grants or we did do fundraising, that we would be known as part of Lower Paxton Township. There was a historical society in Lower Paxton Township for a few years.
Right.
And it really didn't report to the township, it just used the name. And we want to make sure that we are part of the township because we want to be able to let the citizens, especially the citizens like tonight, we heard about the new development. Well, the house that Sandy lives in is one of the oldest houses in Lower Paxton Township. And in a sense, maybe should be a historical house because of the fact it was built in the 1700s. There are very few of these houses left. And we want to be able to let people like Sandy know and other people who are living in these houses that they have something of historical value. But we feel we need the township to be part of the township to be able to do that. I'm looking for your guidance too. I mean, we can do something as long as we can come back to you people and get your advice on what we're doing.
Mr. Stein, would it be, even though we wouldn't be forming a township authority, could we by resolution bestow upon a certain organization the title of official historical society for the township and then undertake any funding requests that they might have as they come before us on an individual basis?
You could do it a couple of ways. One way you could do it is, as I understand Mr. Murphy, he actually wants this thing to be part of the township entity. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. The way that could be accomplished is they could be a township committee. And they could just be called the Lower Paxton Township Historical Committee,
That's
if you
perfect.
will.
Okay.
In fact, that's what
That's
we have been
perfect.
calling ourselves.
That's perfect.
Oh, good.
Right.
Yep.
And I had another thought. Do you remember on the plan that we saw that Sandy brought in tonight? Her piece of, where her home is to be set aside. And it would be nice if we could ask Sandy, if you're watching, pay attention. If she would donate the house to the township, then we have the first piece.
Maybe we should have kept
So
her
Sandy,
here.
if you're watching, please
did-
consider my request.
Gary, you didn't see me shaking her hand before she left, and I said to her exactly those words, "Save the house."
Absolutely, and she will.
Yeah.
She understands the significance of that house, I'm sure.
We have a small committee right now that is looking into a house over on Linglestown Road, which has been empty for a very long time. And we're looking at that as a possibility of doing something to make sure nothing happens to it. It's dated 1792. And we just don't want these places to disappear. Some of the developments that have sprung up around Lower Paxton, they have saved the old farmhouses that were on that development. But other places, they've just disappeared. So that, I think, besides preserving the history and letting people know what the history of the township is, we want to also preserve what's going on.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So basically, if it is the consensus of the board, we could have Mr. Stein draft whatever resolution or language we need to establish a Lower Paxton Township Historical Committee.
That's correct.
And then funding, whether you needed to purchase a house or something, would be considered on a case-by-case basis.
Correct, by the board.
So then a separate nonprofit organization will not be established?
Well, what we can do, okay, separate from the committee, if we could associate with somebody else that has a 501c3, okay, and we could use their 501c3. Similar to what the Linglestown 250th did, they were part of TFAC, okay? And TFAC actually controlled the funds, allowed the donations to be nonprofit, but the 250 used the funds. Now, you have Heroes Grove, which has a 501c3.
Right.
How are they connected with the township?
The Heroes Grove 501c3 is not an official part of the township.
Okay.
First of all, Heroes Grove is a countywide organization with a facility located in Lower Paxton Township. So Heroes Grove, Inc. is a 501c3 standalone that is not an official part of any governmental entity. We only recently acquired that C3 like 2 years ago, I believe, something like that.
think it
Now,
was 2 years.
the grants for it have been shepherded through Lower Paxton Township and through Dauphin County.
Okay.
So there are processes for that, but if you want contributors to have, for example, deductibility for federal tax purposes, then you need to have a 501c3.
Okay, if we had a 501c3, could we have it as a committee of Lower Paxton Township?
You can't be both.
Yeah. We have two options, where you're an independent nonprofit and you can apply for the funds, or, and this is what I'm trying to figure out, if that's where we were headed, to where the township actually buys property, actually maintains, actually repairs, that we're responsible for, because it sounds like that's one of the two options, and that would take a lot more consideration if we were going to actually have the township take the lead and be responsible for acquisition and maintenance.
Actually, I don't think there's any legal prohibition to having both. It's just that the 501c3 would be independent of the governmental.
It would,
entity.
that's correct.
Yes.
And you have to be careful of commingling things when you have that arrangement.
Yes, you cannot commingle, but you could, for example, have the members of the committee also be the board members of the 501c3.
They could be, yes.
And that would
You just have to be very
separate.
careful. You have to be careful as to how you account
Right.
for funding.
You would have to keep the 501c3 separate from the committee.
Yes.
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 But you could have both. The only thing I'm looking at is I don't want to come to you and use taxpayers' money when I could raise funds and try to do some of these things. I think if it's a building that we're going to move into as a historical committee, that should be owned by the township. The township should have the right, so individuals can't get involved, you know what I'm saying?
You can structure that. For example, in our Colonial Park Rotary Club, we have the Rotary Club, which is not an incorporated entity. And then a number of years ago, we established a Colonial Park Rotary Club Foundation, which is a 501c3, which is what we use to raise money for the Linglestown Clock Project. And they are technically two separate organizations legally, but the membership is common and they work together. So you have the ability to use different structures working together to accomplish the goal.
Well, if we could do something like that, I think that would be feasible, and we would come up with some way to make sure we had separation.
But I don't know, Joe, that the township can own the building. Right?
Well, if the township wants to own the building, it can, and it would merely lease it to the 501c3, if that's what you're thinking about forming.
And you can just do a minimal lease
Correct.
amount and,
Yes.
you know,
The question is, do we
dollar a
want
year,
additional
yeah.
property?
Well, we would entertain each of these
On its own merit.
circumstances as they come up on their own merit, one by one.
Exactly.
But it would appear the first step is, do we want to form a Lower Paxton Township Historical Committee
Yes.
and allow them to begin planning and sorting through all this?
And I think that's a start point.
Is that
Absolutely, I think we should.
seems to be a consensus?
Absolutely.
Mr. Stein, could we move in that direction?
Yes.
Yeah, just so you know, I have a lot of much smarter people that are on my committee right now than me. So they hopefully will come up with some of these things to work around this.
And I hope, because I want to make sure that they understand your legal opinion here. It's very short, and I think I can understand it, so you guys have been around and know a lot more than I do. And I want to make sure we get off on the right foot, that we do something that's sustainable, because I'm really excited. I'm not a lifelong resident, but I would love to get involved and begin to find and target and identify anything built in the 1700s, because now that construction's picking up, you know, the clock might be ticking even quicker. So I would love to identify them. I think those are precious, and as long as we have the right foundation and something sustainable, in the end, it will require the general public taking an interest. In the end, the taxpayers will not be able to sustain it. We can do things here and there, but it will require the community to buy in, and I'm looking forward to that. If we, tell a good story and connect them to the past, as you guys did in your presentation when you were here, that'd be great.
All right. Any other questions?
And Polly would run the Halloween parade through this?
Run all the parades.
It's on my list, Polly.
I knew she would get me
On
for
my
that.
list.
Parade.
All the character, all the characters would have to be pre-Civil War.
Well, see, that could be it. We could have a Halloween parade, and they have to be all pre-Civil War, historically accurate costumes, and it would be educational.
Joe, I do have a
There you
question.
go.
I have a question,
Sure.
Joe. Since you've already done some preliminary work, for Steve to prepare this, what, in your opinion, is a workable number of board members? Because when he writes, he's going to say, a board or a committee that have no more of such and such, blah, 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 distribute across the township, blah, 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 So what would you say is the organizational structure?
The last few months, I've been attending as many meetings at different levels as I could to see how they operate, how many people are attending them. And I would think that we would need around 6.
Okay, that's good, that's workable.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to go a lot more. We will have more people. We will have a lot of advisors when we had the meeting here, I introduced a lot of people. Not all of them were committee members. Some of them were in the community that would be advisors to help us, because to be able to get a lot of the artifacts that are in the museums, we have to have a place that meets certain specifications. And that's another thing that we have to look at.
Do you need an odd number? Does that matter
Yeah,
for
I was gonna
votes?
say you need an odd number.
Odd number is 7 then.
7.
Seven.
But you can always add members, I guess, going forward.
And you can have an advisory board that,
Right,
you know,
and subcommittees.
If there's too
Oh,
many
yeah.
people who want to be involved, that'd be a great problem to have.
Yeah, too many chiefs. We definitely need more Indians. Historical, remember.
Yes, I got that.
Native Americans. That's
Well,
With the 7 members, is there any other criteria that you would like to have included?
well, definitely in the beginning, we're going to need a meeting place, which I was looking, hopefully.
No, I'm just looking for the organization.
Not in the
Trying
organization.
to help Steve put this together.
In the organization, I think the basic organization you would have on a committee, and then when I meet with the committee members, when we start forming it, and we get, because all the committee members have to be approved by you.
Right.
And we want to, but I think if Steve can write up the basic, okay?
We're looking for, what I'm looking for is 7 committee members.
Yeah.
You don't care if it's 3 women, 4 men, you don't care if some have to be on the south side of Route 22. That's the criteria that I'm looking for, because that's what has to go in the construction of the committee.
No, we
7
want.
members is fine?
Yeah, 7
Good.
members, and
Makes it
opened up
easy.
to anybody in Lower Paxton Township.
Residents of Lower Paxton.
Yeah, that residents of Lower Paxton would have to
Yeah,
be.
residents.
Probably run also annual terms, not have a fixed term of more than 1 year.
Right.
So that
Yes.
then they get reappointed every
Every
year
year.
if they so desire.
Good.
That's
keep
good.
it simple and keep it flexible, because it's going to be a growing organization
Right.
as it develops. And
Right.
Good.
Yeah, we want to make it sustainable so that it will continue on after all of us have left, definitely.
And Joe, if you could keep in touch with us with an update, either every other month, every quarter, to let us know. And as far as the meeting room, Mr. Wolf, if you would just get in touch with
Yep.
him, we have facility, so.
Yeah, we will give you regular updates, and I'll be meeting with Mr. Wolf because we want to get a column in the newsletter. And plus, we will have a webpage, Facebook page, and Twitter up and running as soon as it's approved. I sort of don't want to get ahead of the game, but once you've approved everything, then we just have to push a couple buttons and everything will be running.
And we're going to be hiring a communications manager, so if you would keep in contact with her also, because she'll be updating everything.
No problem.
They can, they don't need to.
Thank you for taking on this task.
Well, we will see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. So then Mr. Stein will prepare the necessary resolution for us to consider. Okay, now we have item number 9, action on change orders 5 and 6 to close out the Winfield Street Storm Sewer Project. Mr. Wolf.
Yes, board members, the Winfield Street North Hawks Road project is actually 2 projects bid at the same time and awarded to the same contractor. The Winfield Street portion is actually funded by the Dauphin County Community Development Block Grant Disaster Relief Program. and the North House portion of the project is funded by Lower Paxton Township. The Dauphin County CDBG portion is complete, and we have a deadline of approximately 10 days from now to close the project out. All the paperwork is in order except the final change orders. Within your packet this evening, you have change orders 5 and 6. These are change orders based upon quantities as installed in the ground per bid prices contained within the contractor's response to the bid specifications. The first change order is an increase of $18,900, and the second change order is a decrease of $30,491. Board members, these two items are complete for your action this evening. Andrew Kenworthy, HRG, is here. I'm not sure he actually planned to speak about this, but I'm sure he could answer any questions if you would certainly desire to have him do so.
Mr. Chairman, he's been sitting here this long. Let's have him at least speak.
So you want to ask a question just because he's been sitting here for 2.5 hours?
Absolutely.
Do you have a question to ask?
Oh, I'll create one.
You'll create one. Could you go to the podium, please, so that Mr. Chrisman can develop a question to pose here? Mr. Chrisman.
Ken, could you just give us the reason for the increase of the 18.9? The second one's going to be very easy because that's a decrease of 30,000. So why are we spending an extra 18.9?
I'm sorry, I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but as Mr. Wolf indicated, it's a material increase. It was a unit price bid. Additional quantities were installed as part of the bid, and the unit pricing on that, there were some associated costs with that.
Board members, if you will note also, as this change order originally came in, and you can see the scratch out marks, it was considerably higher. HRG did a detailed analysis of what the contractor asked for based upon the bid and what was actually put in the ground. And although believes a change order is justifiable, the amount requested is significantly less than that as originally proposed, and has HRG staff people have reviewed this with the contractor, and they have agreed to the amount as now approved by the engineer of $18,000 some odd dollars.
So Dolly's the one that did all the cross-outs here?
No. HRG did the crossouts. Dolly did the original numbers. HRG said, nah, that's too much. Thank you, Andrew.
As you know, we're on site rather often inspecting what they are installing and keeping track of that. So we have a very close consideration of what was actually installed and what should be considered.
Do we have additional questions?
No. You ready for motion?
Yes. Well, if there's no additional questions, any public comment? Okay, in which case we're open for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve change order number 5 with an increase of $18,900, and change order number 6, which is a decrease of $30,491 as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hawk. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, there we go. You had an easy time of it.
Thank you. Is there another item for closeout documents? Sign off?
No, we just get signatures on closeout.
Very good.
I haven't been on North Hawks Road for a week. Have they lined it yet?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
There are a few punch list items that we're waiting for spring, essentially, when the weather breaks.
Right.
There's some grading, seeding,
Okay.
some things like the line striping and whatnot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Let's move on to number 10. We still have action on, and we're working our way through all the appointments to boards and commissions for this year. We have appointments to the Greenway Committee and the Community Engagement Committee. And those appointments are, let's see, Community Engagement Committee, These are for a one-year term.
Actually, you did everybody on the Community Engagement Committee at your last business meeting, but you neglected to appoint Mr. Klein.
We have to appoint Mr. Klein.
And then on the Greenway Committee, we withheld that completely because of some question on the status of Mr. Newsom. Mr. Newsom does not want to be on the Greenway Committee, and as a result, all members of the Greenway Committee, including potentially Mr. Klein, as a Planning Commission representative, would be appropriate for reappointment for a one-year term.
All members plus Mr. Klein.
Yes, in lieu of Mr. Newsom.
Okay, so that would be Pat Crawford, Deb Carell, Sherry Davis, Bruce Senoff, Tom Thomas, Jim Seidler, and Jeffrey Klein.
On
No,
the
that's community.
That's a Community Engagement Committee, the Greenway.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay. So let me restate that. James Seidler, Roy Newsom, Thomas Thomas, Susan Landau, Deborah Cornell, Tillman Larson, and Jeffrey Klein?
No, Roy Newsom won't be there.
Okay.
He's resigned.
Oh, I see.
You want to try again?
Well,
There will still be one vacancy.
Yeah, because it says yes in front of his name on the list, so. Okay, all of the above except for Mr. Newsom. And adding in Mr. Klein.
And we have a vacancy. Okay.
And we have one vacancy left as a result of that. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Are you confused?
No, I'm not confused. I was just concerned about the chair, but it's.
The chair is not confused.
Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. And the situation with Community Engagement Committee, Mr. Wolf, is what?
Just Mr. Klein needs to be appointed.
Just one.
Everybody else was appointed at the last
Last
meeting.
meeting, right.
And this would be for a one-year term.
Correct.
Correct.
I'll
we have
make a
a-
motion,
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to have, go ahead, make the motion, then we can have discussion on the motion.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Mr. Jeffrey Klein to the Community Engagement Committee for one-year term.
I'll second the motion.
Thank
So we
you.
can have discussion on the motion.
Would you like to discuss the motion, Mr. Chrisman?
We may.
Go ahead and discuss.
I'm finished. Thank you. I'll call for the question on the motion.
Now I am confused. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that wasn't the most smooth thing ever, but we got it done. No items under odd and no. Improvement guarantees, development agreements, plan reaffirmations.
Board members, you have one improvement guarantee this evening. That is for Autumn Oaks. It's a reduction from $417,885.42 to $236,922.66. The engineering documentation is attached, and this is complete for your action this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Mr. Chrisman has moved approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mrs. Lindsay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any additional business items to come before the board? If not prior to and following this meeting, the board will be meeting to receive information from the township manager. And prior to and following this meeting, the board will meet in executive session to discuss an employee personnel matter. With that, meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Thank goodness. Yay.
Okay, so we should just hit. Just hit that there, turn it off. There you go. Good job. Richie, I just want to thank you.
What's that? Tired of sitting?
Let's go back to bring that up. Well, all that we discussed tonight was what goes into bid specification. So there's probably no conflict of interest.
Isn't that easier?
When you start going to who gets the